What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Stag Voiceover. My name is Neil Glasgow. So I always say in all my videos, you can be a voiceover artist. But to paraphrase a very famous movie scientist, just because you could doesn't mean you should. In this video, I'm going to give you 6 voiceover problems you should probably be aware of. With that in mind, let's get into it. So at number 6, one thing that a lot of people really don't think about, and is the bane of my wife's life: you are always on call. Now, what does that mean? I get emails fairly regularly asking about work. I have clients that need work done, revisions done. I might be working on an audiobook, whatever it is. When you start in this industry, when you start getting work in, or when the auditions start coming in, that's a big one. You get the notifications from Voices or Bidalgo or any other of these sites. There's an audition coming in, and it's a quick turnaround. And you feel that pressure to always be available to do the auditions, to service the client. Because ultimately, especially when you're first starting out, you need, that income coming in. But also when you are established, when you started doing this for a while, you need to be available for your clients who are going to be all over the world. And it's a very difficult work-life balance to maintain. And that's an odd thing that a lot of people can sometimes come up against, because they assume that when you get into voiceover, your days are your own. You could do 2 minutes worth of work and $1,000. And actually, you can do that. Are you going to do that every day? Probably not. Not unless, you are a named voice actor, really. You're going to do these smaller jobs. You might do 2 or 3 of them a day. And you want to do 2 or 3 of them a day because, again, it's not a massive bit of work. But there might be one at 8 a.m., one at 2 p.m., one at 6 p.m., whatever it is. But it just means you always have to be available. And the reality is, at least from my own experience, it can kind of destroy your weekends. We just had a bank holiday weekend here in the UK. Not that you would know from the amount of work that I did. So be aware of that. Be aware of the pressure that this job can bring, especially when you're starting out. You are always on call, and you need to have that downtime, but it is balancing the needs, or the want for downtime, and the necessity of earning a wage. Number 2, you're not going to earn what you think you're going to earn. At least not yet. So doing a bit of research around this, and even from my own experience, your first couple of years, certainly your first year, unless you have an amazing first year, you're probably going to earn under $15,000 or pounds. And that's actually quite a good first year in voiceover. You've got to bear in mind everything that goes into you earning that amount of money. And that might be a bunch of £100 jobs, £200, £300 jobs. It might be a significant amount of £50 jobs or $50 jobs. And that is all about you getting your name established with the right individuals and the right organisations, and ultimately building your experience and capability in being a voice actor. And I say this is, a lot of people go, oh wow, they hear the numbers of 300 for 10 minutes worth of work. Great, I'll do that all day long. Yeah, of course you will. But the reality is you might get that once a week or once a month. You really need to have realistic expectations of what your earning potential can be short term and what it will be long term. Now, when you get into the long term work, when you've been doing this for a number of years, you're established, you have clients, etc., etc., you can look for that to be 30,000 a year, 50,000 a year, maybe even a reasonable 90 to 100,000 pounds a year every year. But that doesn't come day 1, year 1, maybe even year 2. That amount of money takes time to build, because ultimately, as I've said many times before, This is a business that you need to run, and you need to get your head on straight for running the business. Number 3, you've landed a client. Brilliant. Now do it again. The biggest thing in this industry, rather the biggest thing in this job, industry, yeah, no, it's all the right thing. Building your client base. It is amazing when you get your first client. It is amazing when you start seeing money coming in. But to get to that first client, you are going to have to work your backside off. You're going to have a quality product. You don't just get that overnight. You're going to have a good sound, a good booth, equipment, whatever. You don't get that overnight. And when you finally get your first client, brilliant. That client may use you 1, 2, 10, 15 times. Maybe over the course of a year, but they're going to use you multiple times. That's the hope. But you can't rely on a single client. You have to rely on multiple, which means you have to do this over and over and over again. The expectation that you're going to go on the pay-to-play platforms and earn a career, fallacy. The expectation that you're going to get an agent and earn a career, fallacy. You are the business owner. You have to generate your own income, supported, perhaps supplemented, possibly, by the pay-to-play website and agents, if you get hold of them, to get you your work. Otherwise, you are going to crash and burn in this industry, and you're not going to reach the levels that you want to reach. Building your client base is the biggest fundamental aspect of being a voiceover, because ultimately, if you can't sell your voice, you are just a good product with no one to listen to. Number 4, the pay-to-play sites. Now, there is a fallacy. Been using that word a lot today. Maybe it was in one of my scripts. There is an expectation in the market at the moment that basically says if you're not on Voices, if you're not on Voice 123 or any of the other big pay-to-play sites, you're not getting access to the world's biggest marketplace for opportunities for voiceover. And there is a genuine argument to say that that is correct. There are buttloads of auditions that go on those platforms. And the rub of that is you are going to have to spend your hard-earned money that you might not have disposable to join those platforms. Sometimes it's 300, 600, thousands of dollars or pounds to join those platforms. It's a little bit insane. And the problem I have with that, and don't get me wrong, I've used them, but the problem I have with that is the competition base for you is mental, right? It is absolutely insane. There are so many voice actors out there on those platforms vying for the same jobs. And where some of the platforms will cap how many people they let into a particular job, they might cap that at 100 or more. And again, if you're not quick to get to it, or you're not in the right region, or whatever it might be, you've got a hell of a competition pool that you are paying to be a part of. And I know people that have been on Voices for years, maybe landed a couple of jobs. I know people that have been on Voices for years and land regular work. And that's kind of the problem. It's a crapshoot. It's an absolute crapshoot. Do you know what doesn't cost me any money? Working directly with clients. It's just a better way to do things. But it's really up to you and how you want to run your career, whether you're going to be involved in these platforms. And as I say, I have used them. Do I still use all of them? Number 5, chasing your client for payment. So, when you get your client, hit the mic. When you get your client and you've done a great job and you've sent an invoice, you're like, brilliant, I'm being paid. Invoice. Invoices mean bugger all until there is money in your account. And you will come up against various things. People who are very communicative until the invoice turns up. People who say, that goes to my accountant. Unfortunately, they're on holiday for the next 3 weeks, hoping that they're going to come back to you. Phone call after phone call. Are you on our PSL? Are you set up on our system? Do you have this reference number? Who's the... There can be so many things. And the reality is every client is different, and you have to have a method that allows you to track what is going out the business, your business, and what you're expecting as your income. And especially when you are trying to make this your income and you've got your own bills and taxes and all that sort of stuff to pay, you have to track that. And without sounding like an arse, which this might sound a little bit like, I've even fallen into the trap where I've forgotten to chase a payment because there's so many things up in the air. If you don't have a method of keeping track of all this stuff and going back and chasing your clients, and believe me, you are going to have to chase your clients. You are going to lose the money that you've worked so hard to generate. And number 6, terribly written scripts. Ugh. So, when you land your first jobs, you might be elated to get them. And when you start working with clients, and I work with a lot of clients all over the world, as I've said, and sometimes the script writers are people who English is not their first language. Now, I'm just going to give you a very generic example. I do a lot of work on YouTube. We all know this. I work with channels who are fledgling, who are just getting off the ground, and I like to work that way because eventually I'm the voice of the channel, and when the channel takes off, it's a very lucrative thing. Key point, look at YouTube work. However, what that means is sometimes that is long-form narration, 10 minutes or so. And if you're working on a very badly written script, the problem you have as the voice actor, or rather, the problem you have, I was going to say me, but the problem we all have. If it's a terribly written script, that encourages mistakes. And if there's no grammar, or the grammar's incorrect, the words are wrong, the spelling's wrong, the formatting's, whatever it is, the worse the script is, not only is it going to take you longer to record because of all the mistakes you're going to make, it's going to take you significantly longer to edit. Now, that can be like, okay, well, they're paying me, whatever. But say you're doing one of these jobs that you might see that come up that's $10 a job, right? $10 a voiceover. And you spend 10 minutes recording, and then you spend another 20 minutes editing. Is your money worth, or rather, is your time worth $10 per half an hour, $20 for an hour? What could you be doing in that hour? How much time is that taking up in your day? And this is just an example for YouTube channels. I've done it for... I did an audiobook that was so poorly translated that, you read it verbatim, but I'm sitting there going, what? What are you trying to say? What is that word? And I'm going back to the editor and I'm saying, did you mean this? And, we're trying to match up certain things. And the more time that you try to help, and, I try and help where I can, again, that devalues everything that I do. And you need to be aware that these jobs are out there. You might be, again, if you're just starting out, very willing to take those jobs. And there's nothing wrong with that. Work is work. I've always said that. But please be aware and confident enough to go back to the people who have produced the script and say to them, this isn't right, that isn't right, and try to come to a happy medium. I have very happily walked away from more work than not because of poorly written scripts. And that's not because I'm in a privileged position by any means, but I understand that based on what the budget is that the client has to spend and the time that I am spending doing that and how much I hated doing it, not worth it. Not worth your time. And you need to be aware that that sort of thing, especially now in the age of Fiverr and Upwork and Freelancer and all that sort of stuff, and be on those sites, no problem with it at all. But you are going to get a lot of cheaply written material that maybe is not of the best quality out there. And that goes part and parcel with the argument of, cheap work for cheap work. You might be the best part of that production, but it does mean that you have to contend with all the poor bits that are out there as well. And that's it. Those are my 6 pretty weird and off-putting aspects of voiceover as a job. If you found it remotely helpful, drop me a like, subscribe, and please do hit that notification bell. And if you've got an opinion on anything I've said, drop me a comment in the comment section. And remember, you can absolutely be a better informed voiceover artist. I'll see you in the next video.